everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Spark AI Show. I'm joined again with Aaron Van Ruler today. How's it going, Aaron?
Good. How are you, TJ?
I'm doing great, doing great. So, I think I just kind of want to jump in. Here we go. Let's jump in.
All right. Fire in the hole. What were you up to last week, TJ?
So I think that's what we want to talk about, right? So we had an opportunity to attend an event at MIT Media Lab put on called Imagination in Action, put on by a super energetic guy named John Werner, and he was a great host. Aaron, I'm curious. Tell us just a little bit about the event in general, just overview of what the event was.
Yeah. So the event was, I think the subtitle was like "Forging the Future of Business and AI," and so John. I don't actually, now that I think about it, I'm like, I don't really exactly know what John does. He definitely has like a huge background in AI. He's been part of MIT. He's part of a VC fund called Link Ventures, with a business partner who was also part of the event. It seemed like there was maybe the Media Lab sounds like a little building or something. It was like a 6-story building at
Right,
MIT.
yeah.
I'd never been there before, but it was pretty cool. There was like the textiles part where they're like doing fashion stuff related to technology, and then they're like clearly a set of stairs and some other things that you would use robots on. Also, lots of signs that said no photos, no videos, and so no pictures of those various rooms or whatever. So, but in general, the event was around how does business and AI sort of come together and like move forward? And John's, sort of like big picture vision, he said multiple times, was like the next X big idea could be two people in this room who meet and have co-vision for building the next huge thing. Yeah. And, not like the next Spark, but like the next Facebook, the next Google, the next whatever it might be. So it was really getting together a bunch of different people from, I think a lot from kind of the Northeast, MIT, Harvard area, but we were there obviously from Indiana. So not just limited to that, but yeah, I think that tagline of forging the future of business and AI is like kind of how do these two things meet? He also has another conference, which he called more the academic one, which is just like all the research, all the papers, all the advancements, all the technical stuff.
Right.
So this is, much more on the
practical
business to consumer
application
kind of
side. Yeah.
So
John's managing director at Link Ventures. So Link Ventures actually based there on or adjacent to MIT's campus. So it was a really cool event. We, sort of happened into it a little bit, but we were there representing Spark as part of their Startup Alley program that they had, along with it was about 80 to 100 other startups that are all in various, sectors, all AI focused, but all, different industries, different problem sets that they're trying to attack. And Aaron, you actually got a chance to present a 90-second pitch in front of all of these startups. I'm curious what that felt like and how that went.
Yeah. Well, and so first of all, how we ended up there. So Dave is the director of innovation, senior director of innovation at WriteWorks, where we both work. And he had attended the event last year, the year previous. Yep. I think was the first annual, I guess you could say. And that was wild because that was right when GPT
just come
3 out. And just all that stuff coming out. API is now available to everybody to be able to build things. And so he had been there the previous year and made a connection with John. And so he had, got us to be part of the event, which was just wild. So shout out Dave. So yes, part of, 80 people pitching. And so it was very time boxed. 80 people are going to pitch between this time and this time. You have 90 seconds. And there was somebody saying time, next person.
Not intimidating
and
at
all.
all.
And it was alphabetical. So we were the S. And so we were pushing right up till the start of the event at 9 a.m. So everybody was coming into the room and we were the S's. And so, yeah, it was wild, man. It was exciting. I think the biggest thing was, we've talked and we thought a lot about Spark as over the last year, but boiling down to what do you do, in a 60-second to 90-second clip, and why does it matter, and what is the pain, how are you solving it, and sort of what kind of traction do you have, was a great exercise. All stuff that we've talked about with a bunch of people in the past, but boiling that down was great. I always, my own self-critic, feel like I could have added this, said that differently, done it differently, or whatever. But I feel like in the scheme of, not a print, one of the other pitches was a guy who's like 2020 Princeton
Right.
valedictorian. I'm not.
You didn't
I'm not
you
that.
didn't
So
graduate from
I felt like I
Princeton and you
held
were not also valedictorian.
two things that are not true about me. But I felt like I really held my own, and that Spark as a product held its own amongst all of the different products that were there. So everything from, we're focused on the accounting vertical, but there's legal products that were there, medical, I don't know, chip stuff, processing stuff, server kind of things. There was, I thought of this because the textile labs, one person who's like creating AI
Camouflage,
powered
basically. Yeah, it's basically
camouflage,
AI
basically
camouflage so
built
that
into
so
clothes.
yeah, the
Yeah.
general gist of that one is like, think about all of the cameras that are everywhere and how there's facial tracking and recognition and all this stuff. And the idea behind this fabric, this textile, was that it would make you appear as a teddy bear to the camera. So like it would basically mask you to these cameras, which, and honestly, like, I mean, wasn't for me, but it was fashionable. I still thought, like she was wearing it around the venue, and I was like, all right. I mean, it's it's clearly
Yeah.
not whatever quote unquote normal attire, but it's it was fashionable. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
very interesting.
And a world that I'm not aware of, but like amazing to see somebody applying AI in a thing that, it's just across
Yeah.
so much stuff. So I felt like Spark really held its own, and eventually, then so the pitch was in the morning. Then we had the startup alley, it was called. So in like the lobby of the building, everybody had a table, and people could come up and ask more questions or whatever. So kind of share what was your / our experience in that environment, that sort of networking
So
space.
I think before we jump into that, one sort of key takeaway or add on to what you just said is I think it's really easy for the imposter syndrome to set in pretty quickly when you think oh, we're going to MIT, which is, I mean, a hub certainly for AI right now. Boston has become very much a startup startup central. It's basically Boston and San Francisco, Silicon Valley. And so
Yeah.
there's, along with many others, but Boston is definitely centered right on MIT. And so it's easy to walk in there and go, oh my gosh, we're in the middle of all of this, and what are we bringing to the table, And so, but to your point,
Yeah.
I did feel like I felt like we held our own for whatever that means. But I felt like we had a lot of really good feedback. So Aaron, you were just talking about the Startup Alley piece, and we had a chance to talk with and meet a lot of the other startups, but also a lot of just other attendees and presenters and the people, curious people walking by. Interns and students at MIT were some of the people that we chatted with, and it did feel like
venture
yeah,
capital
absolutely. And
investors,
a lot of them,
yeah.
we're in a little bit of an interesting place given that we're part of RightWorks as part of the innovation lab. So a lot of them were, kind of treating us more as, what stage are you in? That was a frequent question that we got, and we kind of had to draw parallels there. Sort of a seed stage, early A round kind of a startup feel. But we were chatting before the call here, and I think one of the big takeaways, and curious to get your take here, was just it was interesting when you're approached by so many different people that you really do get to quickly refine over the course of a 90-minute session. How many times did you do the quote unquote 30-second, 60-second pitch, in that time period? Probably 20, 30 maybe. And so you really refine like what works, what doesn't. How do I talk about this? Okay, that clearly what I said there did not make sense for that person in their context or whatever. And so, just being able to rapidly refine. And I did notice that you and I sort of, our personalities are different. What we're focused on is a little bit different. So we kind of took different paths. It was generally the same, and what the problem is, but I tended towards, things that maybe you weren't talking about. So,
Yeah, and we were, as we were talking earlier, the application here, I think for maybe some of our listeners, in an accounting firm, being able to sort of say quickly, and maybe people have this already, so maybe I'm just ignorant, but being able to quickly say like, what are you doing? How are you helping people? And maybe who are you focused on? So, especially like in building like an advisory service and focusing specifically on some sort of like niche client, it makes it really easy then to explain how you can bring value, bring how your services can, provide value to whatever your clients might be. And really, quickly, somebody asking you, tell me about your firm, they can decide if they're a good fit or not a good fit based on how you're positioning yourself with the services that your firm offers. And that was true with us. We were able to like, okay, this, and with a VC person, they're interested in this. With other startup person, they're just kind of curious about what we're doing and how we're solving it. Other startups are like kind of curious about the technology pieces of it, maybe even like how we can partner. And I think that's very true in a firm owner sense of making connections, in being able to communicate, what are the pains that you're
Yeah.
solving? How are you helping bring value? And how do you do that? How do you deliver those services? So, I thought it was really exciting. And there was also, so that was Startup Alley, but the day before there was a different networking event with just the startups that we attended. I don't know if you have any takeaways from
No,
that.
I think, I was trying to think of them actually as you were just talking there. So there was part of this networking event that we did the day before was sort of a thought experiment, thought exercise intended to like meet new people, right? So there's probably 100 and, I don't know,
Right.
150 people in this room. Maybe it was a pretty packed room. And
I have no idea.
one of the exercises was they went through 12 statements, and it was like, okay, take 1 minute to meet somebody new and discuss this statement. So I can't remember. I'm having a hard time remembering what many of them were, but one of them was basically, these were statements meant to get you thinking. And so one of them was like, AI doctors and tutors will be. It was even more overt than this, but will be prevalent, like will be a main thing. So like
Yeah.
full on AI doctor, not even like doctor human in the loop. It was like AI doctor
Assisted. Yeah.
and tutors will be, will be a thing. I can't remember I
Yes.
don't know if you remember any of the others.
There's some like around robotics. There's some around like government kind of city planning,
Yeah,
how cities will run or something like that, like local. Yeah. Just a wide range of things, robotics, teaching,
yeah,
education, yeah, government, all that kind of stuff, and how they will be impacted. And yeah, so get into a group of 2 or 3 people. There's 12 of them, so you ended up meeting
right.
a
It was
bunch
definitely
of
a
different people. So
whirlwind of
yeah,
an event, like just like
yes,
chaos. It was a little bit chaotic.
yeah, but everybody's in the same spot where they're like don't
Right.
know people, and so you just talk to people, so
Yeah.
it's fine.
Any other takeaways from that event for you?
Yeah, I mean that kind of started that sort of like refining what the message is, how do we define spark or whatever. So that was really great. But yeah, then the next day, the pitch part of it in the Startup Alley was part of this larger conference, and so the conference was just packed. I mean, they had 25-minute sessions, and there's usually 3 to 5 people
Yeah.
panels with a moderator and topic. And I think this was in 3 different rooms. We kind of stayed in one
Right.
room, the kind of the main room, but yeah, I bet they had 200 people presenting on various panels if
Yeah.
you spread it
It
out.
was a
So yeah,
packed day. It was
is it?
only a 1 day event, and it was, yeah, from start to finish. I don't know that they actually had any breaks at all. Like it was just go
No,
go go,
no.
and try and squeeze into a room and
Yes,
hold a seat. So
yeah. So maybe let's get into just a handful, maybe 2 or 3 big takeaways from some of those various panels. I know you took, we're just sharing our notes previously. You took quite a bit better notes than I did. A few things stood out to you. So any, any big items that stood out, any big, presenters or panelists that kind of stood out, and what was your takeaway? And maybe the follow-up question of how does that maybe apply to the accounting audience
yeah.
or industry?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, as I'm sort of like, high level, try to drill down, I think, a few of the main topic areas were, certainly tech advancements, I think is a big one, right? What are the advancements, and how do we apply those? I think, I was surprised, maybe not surprised, but there was a fair bit of discussion around policy and, how do we feel about regulation and its role in, encouraging or inhibiting innovation in this area. And then obviously, investments played a big role. There was a few sessions that were, basically filled by panelists that were investments. And um, one of the things that I felt throughout the day was, we talked about how MIT is sort of a hub for AI, and it really does feel like I've got this really poorly constructed concept that I kind of refer to often, but it really does feel like the closer you are to the inventor, the closer you are to the caveman with the fire, the more you're able to connect dots and to be able to understand the root of what these things can do, the capabilities. So I feel like if we didn't attend this, I still feel like, and I still actually probably more so now feel like I know that there's way deeper we can go into a lot of these things, and I just, it's sort of a, I don't know how to say it, but it's not a drug, it's not an addiction, but to the point where it's like I know there's more, and I need to find the source. Like,
Right.
what's the source of this information? Because the closer we get to it, the more actionable it will be, I think. And so
Yes.
anyway, that's how I felt. I think, we're talking, so some names. So the Perplexity CEO Arvind Srinivas was there. He kind of kicked off the day. So Perplexity is by many accounts, it was 20 months, I think, 20 months to unicorn status, and they are, on paper threatening Google, in the future. Now, whether or not they're able to do that,
and it's a tool. It's like a search tool. So it's Gen AI basically search tool. So you ask a question and it'll come back with, generated responses, but all of them have a reference and usually a website that they point to. So I use Perplexity quite a bit. And my one quick big takeaway from him was one of the moderators kept asking, how do you do it? Like, what's the technology? So how are you doing it? And he's like, we just are using the best AI tool for whatever job. So search does this, generation is from here, such and such is from here. It basically came down to the user experience is what matters most. Like, all the language models are going to get better. And so he was kind of saying, like, don't dwell on picking which language model, just deliver the experience. And I think the takeaway there for like an accounting firm owner is everybody can offer very similar advisory services, but it's how you deliver it and how you communicate with the user or with the client that makes the difference in their experience. And even as we would tell people that we're working in the accounting space, almost everybody's reaction was accountants or my accountant's terrible. And so I'm like, man, the user experience of delivering your service as a firm owner, the bar seems to be pretty low based on the interactions we had.
I did think it was interesting, not to dwell on this one specifically, but I did think that, that user experience he talked about, just like Perplexity is an answer engine. He goes, all you're going there for is to get an answer. He's like, we're not gonna, and what that looks like under the hood, like he got into a little bit, but it's like, it's more orchestration for, they're solving an orchestration problem, like we fire off these 4 different things to 4 different models at the same time based on your question. So we can wrangle it all and get it back to you in something that makes sense for your question, and it all happens in a matter of seconds. So, I guess, so I mentioned Arvind. I mentioned, so Steve Case, formerly of AOL, was there. Jan LeCun is a heavy hitter. So he's VP he's a VP and chief AI scientist at Meta. And so, I mean, these are the big names in the industry. Stephen Wolfram was there. We didn't actually get a chance to see his talk because couldn't find a seat.
Get a seat.
Yeah.
I think Lex Friedman was there. I saw somebody else. So so I saw some takeaways from him. So, and we've talked a little bit, maybe outside this podcast, but Lex Friedman has a couple episodes in his podcast with Jan LeCun and with Sam Altman. And those go really deep into the technical side of AI stuff and just sort of I was thinking of this phrase earlier when you were talking, the democratizing of AI. Like, how do we make AI available to a lot of different people? Ethan Mollick just had a post yesterday about this idea of democratizing AI. Unrelated to this conference, but again, just this general idea of like, how do we make the sort of new superpower available to not just people who happen to work in
Yeah.
technology like we
Well,
do.
I think one of the big takeaways as it relates to democratizing AI was from Jan LeCun, and so they have a different approach. So Meta has released Llama, and actually just released a brand new version that day that we were there, and so they talked briefly about that. But their different approaches that they're open source. So right where
Right.
OpenAI's model is closed, Anthropic is closed. Llama is out there and it's open source, and I loved Jan's take on that, which was basically, it seems like we give access to more people and innovation that speeds innovation, and he also had the tack or the statement. Basically, it's a waste of resources for it's very expensive to do these foundational language models, and his feeling was, if that's millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, it's a waste of resources to make it so that 50 companies have to spend those kinds of dollars to create these foundational models. So if we can do that, and we can represent that and that capital and be able to build that, then we can spur innovation by giving that away, essentially. And I just saw,
Yeah.
speaking of, just saw this morning a report. They had run the Llama, what is it, the 70B, 70, the two different models that they released. They ran them against the benchmark, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, but basically they're GPT-4, kind of on the bottom end of GPT-4 equivalents, and even the 7B, which is basically something that can sit on a reasonably lightweight device. So just
Yep.
the fact that we've been able to take what is, a GPT-4 class model that is very power hungry and takes a lot of resources to run, and now they've basically in a year-ish been able to shrink that down to something that is effective at a much smaller and much less resource intensive version, is pretty interesting.
Yep.
And leads to
Yep.
the thought that a lot of folks are saying, even with what we currently have, there's 100x improvements that we can be making to the models and to the functionality that we have. Any other key takeaways, Aaron, from the conference as far as you're concerned?
I was just looking through my notes here, and I did see one more, this phrase democratizing AI, and there was somebody who has I didn't catch her name, so somebody from IKEA, and she was talking about her dream of what if every customer could be their own interior designer, so leveraging AI within IKEA, which is like, again, she was separately talking about like AI adoption within IKEA, the employees, but then how do they deliver that to customers? But again, it's like a thing that maybe every person being an interior designer isn't like, world saving things. Side note, there's also a bunch of like stuff around medical stuff, and these people talking about proteins and DNAs and sequencing and genomes, and how AI is like just speeding things up so much, going from a 10-year process to like a 3-month process, which is just wild. So two extremes there, IKEA plus the medical science part of it, but just exciting. I guess the big takeaway is like, it's just maybe going back to what you were kind of saying, like the closer you are to the caveman in the fire, the more opportunity or possibilities you can see as you like take these various use cases and maybe join them in your head, connect the dots.
I feel like that is I was just looking back through my notes. It's the best representation of that concept to me came from Aravind, so the CEO of Perplexity, where he said basically he had an internship with OpenAI. He had an internship with OpenAI back 2018, I think is what he said.
2018.
And they had basically just released, right? They didn't actually release GPT-1, but they were working on GPT-1. And I remember him saying like, that was the first moment where I was like, this is a thing. Like there is something here. And it was still like super primitive at that point. But I mean, you think about being in that room, the proverbial room there, and being able to see like, and to be able to draw be able to make that connection that he was able to make to like, oh, this is a thing and here's how we can apply it. And then he took off, and what are we, 6 years later, and he's, CEO of a incredibly fast growing startup, and so I do think that there is
Yeah, that got his PhD in AI from MIT and interned at OpenAI. So a few
For
steps
sure,
along
for
the way
sure.
there.
But he was in the room where it happened, as they
He was
say
in
in
the room.
Hamilton, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
cool. So it's really
perfect.
hard to distill, all of that into one 20-some minute recap here. But basically, I think there's a lot of really interesting things. There's a lot of really interesting tech advancements that we're looking to take advantage of. I certainly,
Mm-hmm.
we're always looking for feedback. So going to make that plug one more time. So looking for
Yep.
feedback, give us a review, give us some comments, come join the community and let us know your thoughts on A, what we're building, and B, what's going on with AI and how it's improving your firms. Always looking for the next thing for us. So with that,
Yeah.
go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, and to just kind of recap the potential applications, like, how does a firm owner, what do they do with this? Is like, think about the deliver, like the way you deliver your services, like the user experience. So we think about products, obviously, but we're software products, but that's the same in human products, I guess. And then thinking about like connecting the dots about how you can take this thing over here and that thing over there, and maybe combine them in a new way that that speaks to the to the value that your clients are really looking for. Oh, that other thing, the bar seems to be pretty low in delivering value to clients. Just being slightly proactive, I think puts you in the top 5% of accountants'
Yep,
experiences.
absolutely.
So.
Great recap. Awesome. So that's it for this episode. We will see you next time. Hope everybody has a good one now that we are through tax season and we can start to think. Although I did talk to some other firms recently, they said, yeah, it's through tax season, but it's just started for us. So I don't know where you are, but hopefully we can look forward to some blue skies this summer and everything's going well for us. Thanks all. Take care. See you, Aaron.
Thank you. See ya.